The race for the United States Senate ends tonight. 35 seats up for grabs with control of the Senate on the line. Welcome to HNN's coverage of Election Night 2020. It's been an unusual campaign nationwide, including the fight for the United States Congress. What started as an expected hold in the Senate and gains in the House of Representatives for the GOP has the potential to turn into a nightmare scenario. Currently, Republicans hold a 53 to 47 edge, with two independents caucusing with the Democrats. Flagging support in the polls for Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's Republican caucus has put their majority in danger, with Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's Democrats waiting in the wings ready to take over. Out of 35 seats to be decided, Democrats hold a distinctive edge, as up to 8 GOP senators may be endangered tonight, compared to only one Democrat who is considered legitimately in danger. Republicans need to win 21 seats tonight to maintain control and keep Senator McConnell as majority leader. Democrats need 4 more wins than losses to guarantee capturing the Senate and giving Senator Schumer a promotion. A 50-50 tie, and the presidency will decide control. And now the countdown to Election Night 2020 is almost over as we approach 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with polls closing in Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Virginia. Our first call is in the state of Kentucky after a couple of close calls for the Majority Leader Mitch McConnell easily dispatches Democrat Amy McGrath to retain his Senate seat. Whether he maintains his title of Majority Leader is something we won't know for quite a while. In Virginia, Mark Warner, popular former state governor who had an unexpectedly close call in 2014, easily wins re-election in 2020. The state of South Carolina is too close to call. In spite of being a Republican stronghold on the presidential level by going for a Democrat only once in the last 60 years, incumbent Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is highly unpopular in the state. Democrat Jamie Harrison ran a solid campaign and was boosted when Graham's campaign ran a highly controversial advertisement where they admitted to darkening Harris's skin. Due to the stranglehold Republicans have on the state, this is surprisingly too close to call. Now on to Georgia, which has both seats up for grabs this year. First up, the special election is too early to call. Appointed Senator Kelly Loeffler, who was appointed to the seat by Governor Brian Kemp when former Senator Johnny Isakson retired after 15 years in the Senate for health reasons. Loeffler is in the fight for her political life after a stock scandal rocked her campaign, and she was challenged by U.S. Representative Doug Collins. Collins was President Trump's choice for the appointment and is now running for the seat. There are 2 Democrats in the race as well, but both poll in the low to mid-teens. Collins had a solid lead going into the summer, but watched it evaporate as the race tightened. It should be noted that Georgia law requires a candidate receive a majority of the vote to win outright. Neither candidate will reach that threshold, making a runoff between the two likely. It is currently too early to call as we wait to see which 2 candidates will advance to the runoff. The majority rule will not be a problem in Georgia's second race, which is too close to call. Republican incumbent David Perdue is going up against Democratic nominee Jon Ossoff. Ossoff is best known for being involved in the 2017 special election in Georgia's 6th congressional district, where he led after initial voting but failed to get a majority before losing in the runoff. Polls have shown Perdue with a small lead coming into tonight. Looking at the map, we see Republicans and Democrats have grabbed 1 victory each in this very early election night. Looking at the totals, little has changed, with both sides holding 1 seat each. 3 seats uncalled at this time, and with Senator David Perdue's Georgia seat too close to call, Georgia's special election seat too early to call, and headed for a runoff, and Lindsey Graham's seat in South Carolina also being too close to call. It is now the bottom of the 7 o'clock hour on the East Coast, and we have 2 states, North Carolina and West Virginia, closing polls at this time. One we are ready to make a projection on, and one we're going to need some time. In West Virginia, SHELLEY Moore CAPITO will easily win re-election. A one-time Democratic stronghold The state flipped Republican in 2000 and has not looked back on the presidential level since. Statewide, they've been more willing to elect Democrats, with Joe Manchin already in the Senate. However, Manchin's Republican colleague is returning. And the state of North Carolina, a battleground state on almost all levels this year, is too close to call. Incumbent Republican Senator Thom Tillis is fighting for his political life against Democrat Cal Cunningham. Tillis has been widely considered one of the most endangered senators in the nation, and polls had Cunningham up almost all year, but right now, the race is too close to call. Speaking of too close to call, we now have our first uncalled state ready to be called. Sort of. HNN is now confident that we can project Georgia and its special election is a draw, but it's a good draw for the Republicans. There will be a runoff, but those candidates will be Representative Doug Collins and Senator Kelly Loeffler, both Republicans. As everyone expected, no one reached the 50% mark, but with neither Democratic candidate finishing in the top two, that counts as a hold for the GOP, although we won't know who takes this seat for quite some time. Looking at the board, West Virginia has now been added, but a great deal of purple remains and very little color. That brings the total number of seats to 36 for the Democrats, with Republicans having closed the gap to 3 with 33 seats. 3 seats still remain out, with North Carolina added to the 2 uncalled states from the top of the hour, Georgia and South Carolina. HNN's coverage of Election Night 2020 continues after this. "8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, and polls are closing in 11 states at this hour: Alabama, Delaware, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, Mississippi, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, and Tennessee. And we start with the most endangered senator in the United States. Doug Jones has been a target for Republicans from the day he won his seat in 2018. And they got him. Tommy Tuberville is the next senator from the state of Alabama, defeating Jones easily. The former Auburn football coach and favorite of President Trump has given us our first pickup of the night for either party, and possibly the only one this evening for the GOP. Next up, the state of Delaware, the first state whose former senator you may have heard is running for president, and it is sending its incumbent Democratic Senator Chris Coons back to the United States Senate. Coons wins another 6 years as Delaware's junior senator. In the state of Illinois, no surprise, the incumbent Democrat Senator Dick Durbin wins his 5th term representing the land of Lincoln. Durbin was first elected back in 1996 and has won re-election each time by double digits. This year is no different. Another hold for the Democratic Party. Very few states are as important as the state of Maine when it comes to control of the U.S. Senate. Embattled incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins is fighting against the strongest challenger she's ever faced, Democrat and State Speaker of the House Sarah Gideon. Right now, the race is too close to call. This is a big one in the race for control of the Senate. Massachusetts, home of the American Revolution, has sent another favorite son to the U.S. Senate. Joe Kennedy III, current representative of Massachusetts' 4th Congressional District, who defeated the incumbent Democratic Senator Ed Markey for the nomination, holds his seat for the Democrat. He becomes the 3rd Kennedy to represent the state in the United States Senate. In Mississippi, Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith is returning to the Senate. After winning a 2-year term in 2018, she wins the full 6 years, easily defeating Democrat Mike Espy in a rematch of 2018. This is another hold for the Republican Party. The Granite State, New Hampshire, made things close for Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen back in 2014, but not this time. Republicans considered Shaheen's seat a potential target after President Trump narrowly lost the state in 2016 by the smallest margin in all 50 states, but it was not meant to be. The former governor wins re-election for a second time as she holds New Hampshire for the Democrats. His presidential campaign didn't go anywhere, but incumbent New Jersey Senator Cory Booker has easily won re-election for his Senate seat. This will be Booker's second full term in the U.S. Senate, and his win is yet another hold for the Democratic Party. The state of Oklahoma hasn't sent a Democrat to represent it in the Senate since 1990, and it still hasn't. The incumbent Republican Senator Jim Inhofe easily wins yet another term in the Senate. Democrats in Oklahoma had hoped a scandal similar to the one hitting Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler's campaign about a stock sale just prior to the market crashing due to the pandemic might also damage him. It didn't, and the result is another hold for the GOP. Jack Reed, senior senator from the state of Rhode Island, who has won re-election 3 times with over 70% of the vote, has done it again, and may break his record of just under 87% from 2008. He has easily dispatched Republican Alan Waters, whose candidacy is best known for having the state GOP committee rescind its endorsement after news broke of Waters being involved in a domestic disturbance back in 2019. And finally, the volunteer state, Tennessee. Bill Haggerty, who won the Republican nomination after a brutal primary campaign that saw him endorsed by President Donald Trump, has won the right to replace longtime Senator Lamar Alexander. This is a hold for the Republican Party. The big board has suddenly gotten very colorful. Maine is added to the list of states left uncalled at this time and joins Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. The pickup of Alabama for Republicans means the Democrats' road to a majority just got more difficult, but they maintain a current 5-seat lead, having won 12 states so far to the Republicans' 7. It is now the bottom of the hour, 8:30 on the East Coast, 7:30 Central Time, and we have polls closing in just one state, the state of Arkansas. The Bear State has now closed, giving us the easiest call of the night, with a sitting senator running unopposed. Incumbent Senator Tom Cotton easily wins re-election since the Democrats didn't bother to even run anyone. Seen as a possible future Republican nominee for president, Cotton officially wins his second term with what one would assume to be in the neighborhood of about 99% of the vote. An easy hold for the GOP. A look at the totals shows Cotton's victory added with nothing else changing. Republicans cut the Democrats' lead to 4, while 4 states remain uncalled. Georgia, Maine, North Carolina, and South Carolina are still too close to call. HNN's coverage of Election Night 2020 continues. We are now approaching 9 p.m. on the East Coast, 8 Central and 7 Mountain, with another big hour of closings. 11 states with polls closing in Arizona, Colorado, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, South Dakota, Texas, and Wyoming. First up is the newly minted swing state of Arizona, but you wouldn't know it by the Senate race. The Democrat, former astronaut Mark Kelly, husband to former Representative Gabby Gifford, who retired after an assassination attempt, has easily won the late John McCain's former Senate seat, easily dispatching appointed Senator Martha McSally. This is the second consecutive Senate election that McSally has lost in the last 2 years, having been defeated by the state's other Democratic Senator, Kyrsten Sinema, in 2018. And just like that, for the first time since 1952, Arizona has 2 Democratic senators. They wanted this one badly, and they got it. A pickup for the Democrats. Colorado, the Centennial State, is too early to call. Republican Senator Cory Gardner, the most endangered member of Congress the GOP has, is trying to hold on to the seat he narrowly won in 2014. He's up against popular former Governor John Hickenlooper. The state of Kansas is too close to call. Congressman Roger Marshall, fresh off of a brutal primary campaign against Republican firebrand Chris Kobach, faces former Republican, now Democratic nominee Barbara Boyer in the race for retiring Senator Pat Roberts' seat. And that didn't take long. Colorado, the Centennial State, has given the Democrats their second pickup of the night. Former Governor John Hickenlooper has defeated first-term Senator Cory Gardner. Gardner himself won the seat by defeating a first-term incumbent, and now he succumbs the same way himself. A big pickup for the Democrats. Back to closing states, Louisiana, home of New Orleans and the best gumbo this side of anywhere, sends Republican Senator Bill Cassidy back to the United States Senate for a second term. The doctor from Baton Rouge holds his seat for the Republican Party. Michigan, a state Republicans had high hopes for at the beginning of 2020, is sending Democratic Senator Gary Peters back to Washington for a second term. Peters easily defeats Republican nominee John James and holds the seat for the Democratic Party. Minnesota, one of the most reliably blue states on the presidential level, has re-elected Tina Smith for a full 6-year term. Appointed to the Senate after the resignation of Democrat Al Franken, Smith won a special election back in 2018 for a 2-year term. Now, she heads back to Washington for the full 6 years, another Democratic hold. The state of Nebraska, in an easy call, re-elects incumbent Republican Senator Ben Sasse for a second term. Sasse is another Republican senator whose name is being floated as a potential candidate for the party's 2024 presidential nomination, in what is expected to be a very crowded field. Hold on tight for what promises to be a free-for-all starting in about 12 hours. Hold for the GOP. The state of New Mexico, another state Republicans expected to be competitive this year, is not. The Democrat Ben Ray Lujan romps to hold the seat for the Democrats. South Dakota, home to former Democratic Majority Leader and Senator Tom Daschle, continues its streak of sending Republicans to the Senate. Senator Mike Rounds wins his second term as the junior senator from the state. As expected, a hold for the Republicans. Texas, the Lone Star State, a longtime Republican stronghold that threatened to be competitive since the summer in the presidential race, never materialized as one for the Senate. Senator John Cornyn goes back to the U.S. Senate for a 4th term, another hold for the Republicans. And finally, Wyoming, the equality state, so named for being the first U.S. state to give women the right to vote in 1869 before it even was a state, 151 years later, sends a woman to the Senate for the first time. Cynthia Lummis, the former Congresswoman, has been elected to replace retiring Senator Mike Enzi, another hold for the GOP. Another uncalled state ready to be called. HNN can now project another Democratic gain. Cal Cunningham, who led most of the way in the polls, has closed the deal and is the new senator-elect from the state of North Carolina. Cunningham defeated incumbent Tom Tillis and is the third Democratic gain this hour alone. HNN's decision desk is also now projecting Senator David Perdue has successfully fought off a challenge by Democrat Jon Ossoff for a return trip to Washington. Georgia has become a strong swing state this year, but we can now project Perdue holds on. As is often the case, congressional calls come in much faster and more frequently than on the presidential level, as can be seen on the board. Most states fill in right away with only a few notable stragglers. At this hour, the Democrats maintain a small lead over the Republicans, 48-45, with friendlier territory ahead for the GOP. But Democrats now only need 3 seats to clinch control of the Senate without a presidential win. Republicans need to win 6 of the remaining 8 to maintain control. 2 of those close at the top of the hour when HNN's coverage of Election Night 2020 continues. We are moments away from 10 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we have two states closing their polls at this hour, Iowa and Montana, and we don't have a call for you for either of them. Welcome back to Election 2020. In the all-important state of Iowa, the race there between Republican incumbent Senator Joni Ernst and her Democratic challenger THERESA Greenfield is too close to call at this time. A surprise to no one, as the race has been polling pretty much dead even through most of the campaign, but with Greenfield showing a slight edge most of the way. And Montana, big sky country, has had two Democratic governors over the last 16 years, and popular Governor Steve Bullock is in a duel with current Republican Senator Steve Daines. The Battle of the Steves is too close to call at this time, but we do have a call in Kansas. Later than most elections, the result was still the same. The Republican United States Representative Roger Marshall gets a promotion and will replace retiring incumbent Senator Pat Roberts. Yet another hold for the Republican Party. A look at the map shows the GOP is out to a 15 to 13 seat lead tonight over the Democrats, but they need a bigger lead than that if they're going to retain control, with Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's Democrats needing only 3 to guarantee control of the United States Senate. Things are looking good for the Democrats, with the road to retaining the Senate now much more narrow for the GOP. With 7 seats left to go, Republicans can only afford to lose 1 to guarantee maintaining control of the Senate. 2, and the outcome of the presidential election will decide control. Less than that, and the Democratic Party captures the Senate. HNN's continuing coverage of the 2020 election rolls on. It is now 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 on the East Coast. Two states close at this hour, Idaho and Oregon, and we have calls for both. But first, our decision desk has a major projection to make. Maine has given longtime Senator Susan Collins her walking papers. Sarah Gideon, Maine's Speaker of the House, makes the big jump from the state legislature to the United States Senate. A big, big pickup for the Democrats, who've been waiting for this one since the Kavanaugh hearings. Sarah Gideon is now the senator-elect from the Pine Tree State. Back to the states closing at this hour. The state of Idaho, which has not sent a Democrat to the Senate since 1974, continues that streak. Senator Jim Risch wins re-election for the second time. The now 3-term senator holds Idaho for the Republican Party. Oregon, the Beaver State, sends Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley back for a 3rd term. Merkley defeated his predecessor Gordon Smith on his try for a 3rd. The same fate does not befall Merkley, a hold for the Democrats. And we can now call South Carolina for Senator Lindsey Graham. It's been a rough term for the South Carolina senator. After a failed presidential campaign in 2016, Graham became an early critic of then-candidate Donald Trump. Once Trump won the White House, Graham embraced the president and then became more critical again this year after avoiding a primary fight. A stronger-than-expected campaign by Democrat Jamie Harrison took this one to the wire, but Graham returns to the Senate for a 4th term. The map is all but filled, yet incomplete, with the 2 states closing this hour still left uncalled, Iowa and Montana. A look at the totals shows the Democrats only 1 seat away from a guaranteed majority. Republicans now must sweep the remaining 3 states to force a tie to be broken by the presidential election. Difficult, but not impossible. As the top of the hour approaches, let's recap the 5 Senate seats that have flipped tonight. And we'll see you tomorrow. 12 midnight, the witching hour, and we have no closings to report. With one state still left to close in less than an hour, let's recap the states likely holding the balance of power in the United States Senate in their hands, while keeping political operatives from both parties wide awake this early Wednesday morning. First up, the hotly contested state of Iowa, and the only word I can think of is wow. Republican Senator Joni Ernst has the barest of leads over Democratic challenger THERESA Greenfield, but much of the vote holdout is from Des Moines and Cedar Rapids, the two most Democratic areas in the state. But that is close, less than 700 votes separating the two at the top of the hour. This one could take a little bit to sort out. And Montana, where incumbent Steve Daines has jumped out to over a 3-point lead ahead of Governor Steve Bullock. We're trying to find out where those votes still yet to be counted are from to get a little bit of a better... Never mind. HNN can now project that Steve Daines, the Republican senator from Montana, has held his seat for the GOP. This was a hopeful target for Democrats when they got their man in the state governor, but Daines pulls it out, and the GOP's chances to hold the Senate are still alive. Looking at the map, 2 states remain: Alaska, which closes at the top of the hour, and the barn burner going on in the state of Iowa, which may not be settled until late this morning. As for the totals, you can't get that much closer than this. Democrats lead with 50 seats, Republicans close behind with 48, and 2 seats remaining to decide control of the United States Senate as we approach the top of the hour. HNN's election coverage continues. It is now 1 a.m. on the eastern seaboard, 9 p.m. Anchorage local time, and the 50th state is our last state of the night. Alaska has closed its polls, and in spite of the late hour here at our HNN studios, we have no call at this time. Alaska has only sent 8 people throughout its history to the United States Senate, and only 1 Democrat in the last 40 years. Surprisingly, Alaska is too early to call. Incumbent Senator Dan Sullivan barely won his seat back in 2014, and now he's in a surprisingly close battle with Democrat Al Gross, a commercial fisherman and doctor who has added politician to his multi-hyphenate resume. We'll be back. It is a very early 2:30 a.m. in the Eastern Time Zone, 10:30 p.m. on the West Coast, and after a very long night, HNN is now ready to make a major projection. The Democratic Party has regained control of the United States Senate, ending 6 years of Republican control. By a slim majority of at least 51, the state that pushed them over the top is Iowa. Iowa, which voted for President Donald Trump in 2016 by 9.5 points, has ousted one-term Senator Joni Ernst in favor of the Democrat THERESA Greenfield, in what may be one of the costliest Senate campaigns in history once all the bills are paid. The political neophyte has come out on top to win Ernst's Senate seat and push the Democrats over the top. Taking a look at the numbers, less than 27,000 votes out of an estimated 1.7 million cast separate the two. But our decision desk has told us all of the outstanding votes are from highly Democratic Lynn and Polk counties, homes of Cedar Rapids and Des Moines, respectively. The decision desk sees no viable path ahead for Senator Ernst, and with that, the United States Senate goes to the Democrats. A look at the map shows how they did it, picking up seats in Arizona, Colorado, Maine, North Carolina, and now Iowa. The GOP picked up Alabama, but it wasn't enough to hold off the Democrats, who now most assuredly will make New York Senator Chuck Schumer majority leader come January 3rd, 2021. And now, better late than never, we are ready to call Alaska for Republican Senator Dan Sullivan. The victory sends Sullivan back to Washington for 6 more years, but this time he will be in the minority for at least the first 2. And with that, election 2020 is now history. Here's the final map. Decidedly more red than blue, but the Republicans needed even more to retain control of the Senate. Here are the final totals for election 2020. The Democrats win 16 seats, picking up 5 seats in the process. The GOP came in needing 21 for control, but only won 19, picking up 1 Democratic seat. And with that, the 2020 election is now closed. Again, breaking news, the Democratic Party, riding a wave of 5 flipped seats, has regained control of the United States Senate for the first time since 2014. On this very early Wednesday morning, I thank you for joining us for our coverage of Election Night 2020. For everyone here at HNN, thank you for joining us. Now go to bed and good night.